So in this video, we will uncover inversions. So let's delete those chords and focus on the first chord, which is C major. Let's copy it for now. Inversion tells us which note is the highest in our chord. For example, the highest note in our C major is G note. So if we would like to make a first inversion of this chord, we would take the C note and take it all the way up to the second C. C5, C6. And this chord is C major in first inversion, but still a C major. Sounds kind of different. As you can say by now, if we take the E note all the way up to the E6 from E5, we would have the second inversion of the chord. On the bottom of our note inversion chord is a root note, so it's root position. On the bottom of our first inversion chord is the third, so we can say that it's third position. And on the bottom of our second inversion chord, we have a fifth, so we can say that it's fifth position. That's something that you should for sure know, because that makes the chord really interesting and make them sound professional. So let's jump back into our chord progression that we've made earlier and apply the inversions into it. To make our chord progression way more professional sounding, we need the chords notes to be close to each other, but not in the length meaning, but in the pitch meaning. So I'll extend the notes so they are longer. And now to apply inversions, we just simply need to see which note we should take an octave down or up to make all notes really close to each other. So for example, I can see that this G should go octave down. And here's a really important tip for you, which makes everything way more easier. Simply hold Ctrl and hit the arrow down. It automatically will take the note octave down or up. So let's hear what we've done. And before. Maybe not that much changed, but you can already hear that it sounds more even. But we can now find more inversions that are possible. So let's take the E note octave down with Ctrl and arrow down. The D note an octave down as well. E note as well. Let's hear it now. It doesn't sound that bad, but it's still not enough. So what we could do actually is add a bass note. And you may ask how to add a bass note to the chords that we've made. Simply by copying the root note an octave or 2 octaves down. The first chord we had was C major, so for sure the C is our root note of this chord. So let's hold Shift and take it maybe even 2 octaves down. The second chord was G major, so let's maybe find a G and 2 octaves down here and draw it here. The third chord was A minor, so let's find it here, A note. And the last one was F, so we can do it here. Let's hear it now. As you can hear that it's really low, so what we can do is mark all the notes, hold Ctrl as we did earlier, and hit the arrow up. So we have everything an octave higher. But now I, for example, hear that I'd like the C note have an octave down. Or for example, do it like this. So you ask why we use inversions. And I have 2 answers for that. If you were a piano player and you were sitting in front of keyboard, we have 2 hands, right? The bass notes would take the left hand and the chords would take the right hand. You can clearly see that from C to B, there's just 1 half step. And from E to D is just 2 half steps. So the hand of the piano player doesn't have to jump like crazy to make all of the chords in the root position. Most of the time they just sound better. They also add variety to chord progressions, and if you're playing a top melody, for example, over the chords, most of the time you will have to use inversions to make it sound and work much better with each other. So that's why we use inversions. In this example, we have the same chord progression that we've made earlier, but with some groove. And I want to show you how you can find and see the inversions of the chords. So the first chord was the C major, as we did earlier. The C here is in the middle because we have E here and G on the bottom. So it's the second inversion because we have E on the top and G on the bottom. And the root note, in our case C, is in the middle. It's a second inversion. That's a rule of thumb that you should know. The second chord was G major. And as you can see, we have the G on the bottom of our chord, so it's for sure the root position, so without inversion. Third chord was A major. It's on the bottom, so you can see that it's also root position as we had with the G. And the last chord in our sequence was F major, because we have F in the bass. But here it's on the top, so it's the first inversion. Remember that root note in the middle is second inversion, and root note on the top is first inversion. You may ask what happened here, and this is super simple. We have a bass note going down, and the chords to it are simply built out of the root. So you may remember how we did the diatonic chords from all notes of the scales. If you don't remember that, feel free to jump back there. So we have just the root position of the chords here. So F, F, E, E on the bottom, D, D on the bottom, C, C on the bottom. I know it sounds like a Christmas song, but it's just for you to show you how to recognize the inversions of the chords. So to sum all of this up, we can build an interesting sounding chord progressions only using inversions and simple chords, like we had here 1, 5, 6, 4. So before we've learned about inversions, our chords sound like this. And after applying inversion knowledge, we've came into this. It doesn't sound the best yet, but we are getting there step by step. So remember that making pitches of the notes closer to each other like this makes the whole chord progression sound more professional and advanced and mellow and pleasant to listen to.